I've seen a flying saucer.
You've seen one?
Yes,
Where was this?
definitely.
Unidentified aerial phenomena.
To cover up our mistakes.
I've met people who swear they've seen
You should come up
Bigfoot.
with a dance or a theme song.
Join us for a journey into the obscure.
You are now listening to The Wow Pod.
All right. So, welcome to the show, everyone.
Welcome.
Yeah, come up with the dance for that sketchy intro music that I made that, I don't know. I don't think Michael Jackson could figure out how to dance to that.
The Bigfoot scream.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. What
Hello.
have you got tonight for weird news?
Okay, so what have I got? So there is I guess like I'll share the window. There is I don't know what you'd call it. They rate national cities. They rate cities across the nation by their different negative or positive values. And I'll go ahead.
I saw this story.
Yeah, this comes from Fox 13. Salt Lake City's nationwide reputation as one of the most wholesome cities in the U.S. has taken a hit in a new survey. Wallet Hub's list of most sinful cities in America rates Salt Lake City in the 78th position.
So that's pretty far down.
Now it's
What's number one? Vegas? Has to be Vegas.
Well, there's 180 cities, right? So 78, that puts Salt Lake, not us. That puts Salt Lake just closer to sinful than half. So I want to know what the other cities are. You know, is Provo and Ogden on the list? Do they make the cut of that size? Because they're both, I would hope large enough. But anyways. So,
yeah, do we have the list? Do we know? I mean, if Las Vegas is not number one.
Well, let's read on. Maybe it'll tell us. Okay, so Salt Lake City ranked fairly high. We are number 26 in the vanity category.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So we're top 3 in plastic surgeries.
We are?
Yes.
Top 3?
I know, that's crazy.
That's high.
Yeah, we rank high. We're well above the rest in the jealousy category. Now, for that they include thefts and identity theft, fraud complaint. So we're the 22nd position in that. Okay, wow. So anger and hatred, we're the 71st position. Excess and vices, 149th, not shocking. Greed, 167. That's impressive. Lust, we're at 43. A lot of lust going on in Salt Lake. And
lust coming in strong. Oh, no.
We are last place for laziness. We're not
lazy.
Well,
gotta make that coin to be able to do your sins.
Mm-hmm.
Get all of your plastic surgery. That shit's expensive.
Here's the crazy thing. Lust category weighs a city's adult entertainment establishments per capita. Do we have a lot of those?
Well, that would be a question I would ask you. That's not a question I would know the answer to.
I don't know either. I don't go to those places. They're on the other side of the mountain. I never go over there.
They're too far.
It's most active Tinder users. So they measure Tinder, the dating app. And teen birth, it says weight, but I imagine they mean rate.
Right.
But does 19 count? Because that's what the missionaries come back. So I don't know if that's...
Yes, 19 counts.
43 in lust. That's up there. According to the study, only Seattle...
It's in Lake City.
Sin Lake City, or Salt Lust City. According to the study, only Seattle and Missoula were less lazy than Salt Lake. They are the least
Missoula?
laziest. Yep, Missoula, Montana, and Seattle.
Seattle, I totally see. Missoula?
Yes.
I don't know.
Now, Las Vegas is the most lustful city, in the most sinful city in the country, of course.
Called it.
Okay, so number one, Las
The
Vegas.
least sinful. Is it like
I'll
Kalamazoo
it doesn't
or Fargo?
Say, it does
Probably
not
Fargo.
say.
It's too cold. It's too cold to do anything in Fargo.
Everyone's fully dressed all the time. West Valley City is 168 though. But let me go through the list. Las Vegas, then Los Angeles, then St. Louis, then Houston, Atlanta, Miami, Philadelphia, Denver, Washington, D.C.
All the majors.
And New York. So all the main cities.
They all made top 10. Of course they did.
Yep. Salt Lake is number 78. And West
So you were
Valley
pretty
City
right down.
is number 168.
Well,
So
you
how about
wholesome people in West Valley. Grantsville
Yes.
didn't make it on the list.
Shocking. Nor did Tooele.
Nor did Tooele.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with my next story next because I think that your story should cap it off before the interview, especially because of the tie-in.
Yeah.
Does that sound copacetic to you?
Sounds copacetic.
All right, so we've had all these monoliths that pop up. The one down in it started out in Utah, and I read somewhere that monolith they believe had been there for a long time and possibly years before.
Yeah, it was so remote.
Yeah.
And it was spotted by a pilot overhead. It wasn't like a hiker because that's how remote it is. There's tons of tourism in that area and people hike around all over the place down there.
Mhm.
However, this particular place was so remote that none of the hikers, so either it had just barely been placed there. They guess it hadn't because of the position of the sand and everything around it, but it had either just been placed or literally it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, so, and they think it had been there. Someone I heard somewhere, possibly 5 years sitting there. I imagine not a lot of rainfall, rust, protected in a canyon. Maybe that's why it didn't succumb to the elements quick. Also, if it was made out of aluminum or high grade steel, that would also help defend it, though even steel does rust and aluminum does weather, and not a lot of salt down there, so maybe that's it. But so far the monoliths that we know about, we have the one down here in Utah, and then one popped up in California, or no, then one in Romania, then in California, then in Colombia, then in
The golden one was in Colombia.
yes, and then in in Colorado.
That one's at a space museum. Somebody just went out there.
Well, I don't know if it's a space museum. I just lightly read the article and it said near this aerospace museum, but I don't know if it's at it. It doesn't specifically say it was at it, and it doesn't say. And now there's also that one in Salt Lake that's the Wasatch Steel put up, and that one's going to be an advertisement. But I still think that's neat. But the artist Gleep Glorp obviously put up the one in Utah, and then there's elsewhere in Humana. But the story I wanted to share was the one in California. It was taken down by a Christian group, and they videotaped them tearing it down. I don't know who the Christian group is, or if it really is it just seems kind of obnoxious what they did. But it's a group of young men claiming to be Christians have posted a video of themselves tearing down the mysterious monolith that appeared on top of the California mountain and replacing it with a cross.
Yeah.
It had been built near the town of Atascadero. It's California. Why can't I pronounce that? It sparked a lot of interest, and it was on a hiking trail, which was really good. So it already had the ability to maintain traffic, and
Right.
so it shows up. It's another three-sided monolith, and everything was going good. So in a video, it was live streamed. And a group of young men drive from Southern California to tear down the structure under the cover of darkness. They hike up to the structure and tear it down while chanting, "Christ is King." They then erect a homemade wooden cross in its place and drag the remains of the monolith down the mountain to their car. They make a lot of offensive comments, and they're drinking a lot of energy drinks, and then they call they reference a lot of QAnon and Donald Trump, and we've talked about them. And then they
referenced Christ is King and QAnon and Donald Trump.
Yeah, they say a lot of stuff. Now I'm not going to show the video on here because it's abusive, but they say a lot of horrible things about immigrants and things like that. Now,
The most unchristlike behavior you could find.
oh, come on. That's,
Ay,
everyone
ay,
knows.
ay.
But they, so you can watch the video and they're rocking it. And if you want to watch it, research it. I don't want to show it on here because just in case someone, opts to watch this from wherever, they'd probably tear us down. But they say a lot of abusive things and I don't know. They seem over the top on the abusive part. That's why I question whether they're really from that group or if, we've seen people try to portray their opposites over the top before, and but anyways, that's me starting a conspiracy theory and not reporting on it. But that's my that's my question.
That's my conspiracy theory. I started.
Yes.
They are not really Christians.
Yeah, they're
Obviously not. What are they doing? They drove 4 hours? They
I don't
drove
know.
4 hours.
I have no clue.
So it's not like this monolith had any impact on their personal life. They drove 4 hours to go and be destructive to something that other people were finding really cool in a time that cool things are really needed right now.
Yeah, we need happiness.
It's like the 4 do-gooders that showed up in our desert and took it down. Maybe they're the same guys. I don't know, but like you said, heroes.
They could have brought garbage cans for the trash, and
they could have done a lot of things, but they're self-righteous do-gooders.
Whatever. They could have, done something, but they show up like heroes. I imagine their capes are brown with yellow specks in it in the shape of corn. Real heroes,
Yes,
champions,
superheroes.
champions for the common man.
Ay.
Yeah, it unnerved me quite bad. But
So my story
okay, this is the good one, folks.
it does play into this monolith because it's the idea that are these just weird art? Are these just an expression, a way to kind of draw attention away from what's going on? Like an artist somewhere, I can't imagine that by himself, he's been to Romania and California and all these places. However, art emulating art is very common. So perhaps the first one in Utah was just an artist who thought, I'm going to put this out there and I'm going to see how long it lasts, how long it takes. We've got this weird tree in our desert. It's on the salt flats and it's on the way between here and Wendover. Mm-hmm. There's absolutely nothing around it, but it has become like it's a staple. It is.
Here, I'll flash
What's
you a
that?
picture of it up real quick.
It's become this cool thing that you see when you drive that absolute desolate straight ass drive to Wendover.
Mm-hmm.
So what begs the question is, are we dealing with an artist who's trying to bring some, relief in some way or another, some beauty into this crazy year, or are we dealing with extraterrestrials? And there's lots of conspiracy theories and opinions on aliens that have been going around for a long time. And people in high places have talked. This is not the first time. Most recently, a U.S. ex-military boss plainly said that UFOs are real, 100%. Now, he's not talking extraterrestrial. I mean, I guess you could call it whatever you want, but unidentifiable flying objects, not currently identified at least. So unidentifiable in the sense that we have no identifying way to classify these flying objects or the maneuvers. And lots of pilots have come forward and said it happens all the time. We see it all the time. You can explain it as lots of things: atmospheric pressure, you're too tired, maybe you drank too much the night before, or there truly is something that hundreds and hundreds of people are seeing now.
Yeah, well, that one that was chased by those Navy jets, that guy's done a few interviews. He was on Joe Rogan, he was on Lex Friedman. Really interesting talks, and he talks about how fast it changes speed and direction, and the changing of speed and direction would be destructive to a pilot in a regular aircraft if we could get the mechanics to meet those demands.
Correct.
So, yeah.
You add that to, there is a huge scientific community who have gone out and statistically put out the probability of there being visits to Earth from other planets, other beings, and the probability is super high.
Yes.
Super high. Scary high. So a similar statement has now come from an Israeli ex-defense chief, Haim Ashed. He makes his meaning plainly clear. He doesn't just say, yeah, I've seen, there are UFOs. He says, he goes on record as saying, aliens are real and they are in contact with humanity, but they're not keen to making their presence known just yet. And the reason for that is the extraterrestrials are waiting for humanity to evolve. And evolution, you can see it happening. You can see it happening in humanity on a spiritual level right now. If you think back in your lifetime to the way that people, let's just go with the gay community. How many people in, our graduating class were openly gay? We as humans have evolved to understand that that's just a part of human nature. That is an evolution in our brains. It's not a physical evolution because that was there before, but it's an evolution in the way that we interact with one another. And he goes on to say that, now, just to give some preface, he served as the head of Israeli space security program from 1981 to 2010. The head. He wasn't the mop boy. He wasn't, the young guy taking orders. He was the head of the Israeli defense program. And he was awarded 3 times with the Israel Defense Award, which is handed out. It's an annual award that hands out for contributions to the security of Israel. Now, based on these credentials alone, Ashed brings this level of authority to this story. Now, he says certain people are in regular contact with aliens representing a sort of galactic federation. So a group of different types of alien species that have all kind of joined together.
So
And
he's saying that there's a galactic federation of these aliens, like
yes,
a whole gaggle of them that
like what are we? We've got to be like the slugs of the universe.
They've started
Like
NATO.
they're watching us. What? They're just watching us like in a petri dish. They're like, yeah, no, not ready yet.
I mean, I would believe it. You know, if they're advanced enough to make it here, then they would be so far more advanced than we are.
Yeah.
So now you're reading off of Audi.
Yeah, so it's been reported in several different
Audi is one of our
publications.
favorite websites because it has all the fun stuff.
Yeah, Audi, they report everything. So he says that these certain people within society, not just the United States, not just Israel, but certain people within society are in regular contact with aliens representing this federation. But their existence is not, we're just not ready. We are not evolved enough to be given this information. And when I first read this, you know, we all push against, well, not all of us, but a lot of us push against this new world order, this world government, this, you know, no longer being a part of country, this statism that we're stuck in, especially in the United States. What if that's part of our evolution?
What, to become a one world? Kind of like the Federation on Star Trek.
Yeah,
now,
what if that's part of our, I don't know. Anyway, that's what I first thought of was, what if we've got this all wrong?
So does he say where these aliens come from? Who are they? Where are they from? What do they do?
Well, he goes on to state that they're aware 100%, especially with this pandemic, that mass hysteria would be the first response. I mean, look at the toilet paper. I mean, the coin shortage. People.
Yeah. Well, the coin shortage, that makes sense. Where when they closed down the banks, people could no longer take their coins in. And so coins still go out when businesses still do their commerce, their banking. Coins go out because, you know, I'm sure like your gas station or grocery
Most
store.
of them won't even accept anything except exact cash now.
Yes, but let me finish. They still probably have a list of, we want to keep this many rolls of pennies, this many rolls of nickels, this many. So they still extract the coinage from the bank when they go drop off their money, and then make sure that their you know, daily or weekly safe is to account, because I'm sure they have an inventory they want to keep of their safe. We want this many 20s, this many whatevers, you know, what they anticipate they're going to do. So they still extract it from the bank, but people getting change aren't turning that change back into the bank. So the shortage is at the level of the bank. Well, then when businesses go in to get their, you know, what we need from the banks is like, sorry, we don't have any of that to give you. We can't.
And
keep
from
up
what I
with your
understand,
demands.
we actually, the mint, the hysteria I was talking about is this, oh my gosh, we're all going to die from this virus. The mint actually sent their people home under quarantine.
I'm sure that.
And so they weren't minting coins either. So there would definitely, if we went to that monolith and it said, hi, we are here from the Galactic Federation, please take us to your leader, there wouldn't be a shred of toilet paper in the state of Utah. I don't know why, but there wouldn't. It would be all bought out.
Yes, yeah.
So he goes on to say that, listen, they're just waiting for humanity to evolve, to reach a stage where they will generally understand the vastness of space and the technology that these spaceships would and could support to even get them here. Because then you wouldn't, he said, the fear is the hysteria would create their need to defend themselves. So if we understood,
and also it would be a hazard towards us, as maybe if they're, well, it doesn't matter if they're good or bad, because, let's say they look at us as cattle and they're just fattening us up, then they don't want us to stampede and hurt ourselves.
True.
Or if they're kind, they don't want us to stampede. So maybe they've got a schedule of information to be bled out and when it should be bled out. And this guy, he's older now and retired. He's like, man, I don't care.
Yeah, and he basically, in everything I've read on him, he basically said, listen, I couldn't even share this information. Now, I'm retired. What are they going to do? He
did say, had I shared this 5 years ago, I'd be hospitalized.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, given his level of security and his position in the Israel military, they would have, I don't know what they would call it there, but they would have segged him.
Oh yeah.
For mental health issues. So he goes on to talk that he claims that Mars, that there's research on the red planet that it's not in the planning stage anymore. And that he says 100% we've been there. We're already there. That everything that's trickled down about Mars and what we know about Mars is years and years and years behind its actual. And that, I guess that makes sense too, because you don't want to give away.
So maybe we've already got guys on Mars?
That's what he says. Yeah, we're already there.
We're already there.
Yeah, he says there's an underground base in the depths of Mars where their representatives are, and also
that's
our
like
American astronauts.
That's like where the Hague for intergalactic Hague is. Like,
yeah,
they're all up there, and you got the insectoid and the guy with the big gray head and
yeah,
all of that.
So he says, so some humans are not necessarily evolved enough, but he says they're sane enough that believing that there couldn't possibly be aliens is like a level of insanity, and that some humans are sane enough to understand it and to recognize just how powerful a species they are, both singularly because of their evolution, but also in a group. So to not go into it combative, not go into it defensive, but going into it as a partnership. And that, he says the U.S. government's there as well. We have representatives there.
Like an ambassador to the Gleek Glorp.
Yep.
All right. Well, Erin
and he
is
also
here.
adds, what's that?
Erin is here. So let's.
All right. He also adds that the whole jig is almost up, thanks to Twitter happy President Trump. And that he says, you in America have no idea how close Trump was to showing everyone the truth. Because you just can't shut him up.
Trump's going for it. Well, Erin's here, everyone. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Erin.
We just finished up with a story that might pertain to what we're going to be talking about with you tonight.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we covered that. I don't know if you heard it. That Israeli chief, that he was the chief of defense.
He was the Israeli Space Force chief.
Yeah. He come out and he said he's retired. He's retired now, and he's like, yeah, there's definitely aliens. Y'all are crazy if you don't believe it.
Good. I'm glad that he did. I'm glad that he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's nice to meet you, Erin. Thank you for joining us tonight.
yes. So tonight,
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
we have Erin Montgomery on. Erin wrote a book. It's right here. I have not read it yet. It just showed up today. It's called Confessions of an Alien Contactee, Dirty Little Secret. Now, how many people do you think bought this book thought they were getting the next 50 Shades?
The title's very intriguing. I'm like, what was the secret?
Dirty Little Secret. They're probably like, oh, some guy or gal thinking I'm going to have entertaining reading about my lustfulness, elevate Salt Lake City on that list a little more. And then they get home and you shock them with some other intriguing information.
So tell us about yourself, Erin.
Yes.
Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Montrose, Colorado. I, middle class pretty much. I ended up in college in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and then found myself in Roswell, New Mexico, and I've been here for 20 years, which is pretty ironic that I'm here, and I'm ready to leave for sure, which actually is an up and coming surprise for a lot of people around here. I'll be gone in a couple months, so that's very, very exciting news for me. I grew up in the western slope of Colorado, mountains all around. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
And in your book, you speak of an abduction that you experienced. Was this your only abduction?
I have had ongoing contact with ET presences since I was very, very small. My earliest recollection at this point in time is 4 years old, and the latest probably just the other day. I've got all these weird marks on my hand that I don't know where they came from. So, I mean,
So just the
That's
other day,
ongoing.
after we
common.
scheduled to have this interview, the aliens contacted you then. They don't know when to back off. Let shit quiet down for a minute.
I don't know if we come into this life knowing this is what's going to happen, but and it's not just my life; it's multiple generations. My father and his sister have had contact. My dad, I talked to him over Thanksgiving. Like, do you remember any ET contact? He does not. However, he's seen lights in the sky and things like that. However, my aunt has had contact, and her children have had contact, and I have had contact. My brother has and now my children have had contact. So we've got at least, and then my dad and his sister's father had contact. So, I mean, this is 4 generations now of ET contact.
So it follows a family tree. It marked you sometime in your ancestors' past, and then just keeps visiting the same family. Well, I have a lot of questions. Let's without telling the whole story of the book, so people do go out and buy the book. Again, Dirty Little Secret, right there. It's got a picture on it that is of a little flying saucer and a light coming down.
I can't wait to read it.
And the light's like beaming down to an alien. But anyway, so what was your first contact, if you could relay that story?
The first contact I'm aware of was around 4 years old, at least the earliest memory that I have. It's possible that I had contact before that. And it's only a very small blip, about 30 seconds maybe of memory. And I was sitting on the floor in a room that was white, like very sterile, very white. There were other children around me, and we were manipulating blocks as if they were floating. And I was near a doorway. There was a little boy who walked past the doorway with a gray type alien, and he stopped and pointed at me and said, "You'll know me later." And he walked on. So
The little boy said you'll know him later.
Yeah, something to that effect. You and I will know each other. I don't remember the exact words.
Is he your husband or neighbor or something?
I believe that I've met him, but yeah, definitely not a husband.
Okay, we've got to go to that in a minute. Keep on with the story. I'm getting
But
chills.
that's it. That's all I remember. That's it.
Really?
That's
So
all I remember. It was just a little flash.
like
Of
they had you in a white room, kind of training you, maybe if they're teaching you to float things. Do you think
yes,
maybe you're like an
there have
indigo?
been. Go on. Sorry.
Do you think maybe you're like a, I don't know, indigo child? Is that the correct word for that? Like a hybrid?
I think that may be something, with the following of the family line, that makes you wonder how much of the DNA has been manipulated and how much has been changed, and what does that actually mean for my DNA makeup right now? Am I a hybrid? I don't know. I may be.
Oh.
But I have been trained in many different instances of remembering being taught things from there at 4, doing something with the blocks, either telekinesis or gravity manipulation, which I remember later on around 11 also being taught about gravity manipulation, which is odd, and I was like flying around. Of course, on Earth, I don't remember how to do that.
Well, and it
Wouldn't
also,
that be a great skill to remember?
I wish I could fly. I wish I
yeah.
could fly. I did on ship.
Well, it might also be that something with their ship, like for me to portray it back to something that I connect all my life through is movies, like Superman, right? So in Superman, the rays from our sun, which is alien to where he's from, makes him super strong, right? So maybe there's something in their craft or in that white room, or some kind of material that enhances or opens up these powers for you.
I never thought about that. I'm writing that down. And
So
I do that. I take notes doing these shows, because there are always new things that pop up. Everybody has different ideas, and so we learn and grow through talking to each other about the phenomenon and what is
we've
happening.
lost your sound a little
Um,
bit.
did you?
Oh,
Oh,
just for a
okay.
second. But yeah, so
Is it back?
yeah, that is, and it may be that, I mean, if you are an indigo, or, I mean, you know, or just a family that they've tracked, they, for lack of a better word, marked your grandfather, or maybe even further back than that, great
It could go
grandfather.
further back. We just don't know. That's as far as the storyline goes. I don't have access to anything else beyond that. Um, as far as indigo children go, I mean that's a possibility. I would think that I'd be like an earlier generation of that, like possibly just like a star seed. I call myself a star seed often. I do not believe my soul is from here. I have
Mm.
memories of lives outside of this universe. And
That's what I was
ability,
just going to say.
yeah,
We've talked a lot with people who do past life regressions, and the one thing that is, it's this thread that everyone maintains, is that we have a soul tribe. So a tribe of souls that's pretty vast, that we have connections with in every life in some way or another, and that our past lives are not all lived on this planet, that our past lives are lived on other planets or in other dimensions, and that we keep in contact with our soul group, because we're not always in the same lifetime. What if these visits are just someone from your soul group, like the little boy said, who said, "You'll know me later," who's visiting you from the dimension that he's currently in?
Yeah, maybe he means later, like in the next rebirth.
Right.
right. That very well could be. And this is a topic that is near and dear to me. Oftentimes with contactees, you're going to find that they get information downloaded into their minds. I don't know if you guys have talked about this with others or anything like that. I know people that deal with mathematics, with mechanics, with engineering, and all sorts of these different
We're losing your
information
sound.
sources that comes into your mind. But the information that I am taught is about how the soul works on a quantum level, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that we each one of us has many different selves. People see them as past lives. However, my understanding is different selves in a different space-time location. So while it may be perceived to be in the past in a linear sense, but time does not exist. So it gets really complicated in my mind, but we all exist all at the same time. That's all of my different lives are happening right now.
Right.
And I have access to all of those selves, and I can communicate with them, and I can work with them, and we can heal each other and manipulate energy between us. If somebody's having a really hard day, or in a crisis, we will feel it. And people that do past life regressions will see that, okay, so somebody was hurt in a drowning in this past life, and so you're afraid of water. But in my reality, I'm afraid of water right now because my other self is drowning, and so that is one of the things that they have taught me, and they have taught how to understand this, how to communicate, and how to hop from dimension to dimension. That is one of the things that they have done. Of course, I can't just consciously do it. But with astral travel and dream time, I travel in many interesting places.
That's awesome. So what was the experience that led you to write your book? And is that the experience that took you to Roswell?
Well, the experience that took me to Roswell is running out of money and having to live with family. So that was not a choice that I wanted to make. However, it feels like it was very much manipulated outside of myself. The experience that led me to write the book is really the understanding of the trauma that is caused by oftentimes by ET contact, especially on small children that do not understand what's going on. And, oftentimes the medical procedures that we go through, just the xenophobia of a creature that we cannot comprehend, and the impact that it has on our lives. The decision to write the book came from Terry Lovelace. He wrote Incident at Devil's Den, and he was really the one that pushed me to write the book. And it's not, one particular experience. It's this culmination of all of these different things. And there was a point at about 2015, so about 5 years ago, where I was no longer sleeping. I was not functioning well at work. I was terrified at night. The lights, I wouldn't turn the lights off. I couldn't sleep. I was just huddled in my room. Please don't come get me. Please don't come get me. And these feelings of just being crazy. And it was at that point in time that I knew that I had to address this, because I had to work. I had to support my children. I was a single mom. I had to be able to live and work in this reality right now. And I was not functioning. And so that is when I reached out to Yvonne Smith, who does hypnotherapy with contactees to help reduce those symptoms of PTSD by regressing to these different times when abductions happen. And that is, the way to help a person work through and not really cure PTSD, but to come to terms with
Manage it.
Is to get into a very relaxed state and relive it without becoming excited, and that kind of helps your brain file things away and put it to bed, so to speak, so it no longer bothers you. And I told her I want to go straight to the time that was the most traumatic, and I went to being 7 years old and being taken from my bedroom onto a ship and meeting a very tall, thin being who was, I think they would be called a mantid type, very insect-like. There was things moving around its mouth, and I was absolutely terrified. And I was strapped into a chair that looked like a dentist chair. I do not like to go to the dentist to this day, so that is something I'm still working on. And there was, I'm guessing it was, an implant, and it was put into the roof of my mouth by this creature, and I was terrified. And then after he left, I was kind of patted on the head, shown around, looked at the earth down below, and then returned to my bed. And apparently that was the beginning of the fear.
So do you think it's an intent? Do you think the fear is intended? Or do you think it's just a byproduct of whatever they're doing?
I think that it is not an intent. I don't think, well, and it depends on the group. I mean, there's so many different species that interact with humans, and there's so many different agendas that they have. And there are some who just do not care. But that is not these experiences when I was a child. These are loving creatures, but they just don't really understand how the human psyche works. And just the, it gets really complicated, and it's hard to try to extrapolate this into language that we really understand. But right now, at this point where I've been stuck in Roswell for 20 years, it's almost like I had to fully come to terms with who and what I am as far as a contactee, surrounded by little green men on all sides.
Oh my gosh.
They're just paintings and drawings, and all the signs and the street lights have little eyes. It's just everywhere here. You have to come to terms with it if you're here, right? And so I write the book, I get it out, and boom, I'm able to move. Like, okay, so I got it, guys.
So
it only took me 20 years to learn my lesson. All right, I got it.
So once you kind of got it off your chest, then it seems like the cosmic karma cleared the slate and gave you an opportunity to leave.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. That's exactly how it feels.
Now, on most of your abductions, were they mostly like taking you from your room at night, or was it just random wherever they opted to?
I think the majority of my experiences are in my room at night. I have had experiences in different locations at night. Like when I was 11, I was in a different town, and I was not the only one taken that night. My father was as well. And and that's another instance that I got out of a regression. So the second regression I did was that particular night. And there was a whole group of people that were taken that night. My father's not aware of it. He doesn't remember. He read my book, and I asked him, do you have any recall of what happened? He said, no, I remember that trip, but I don't remember anything happening like that besides me sleepwalking. I was trying to leave the place we were staying at. I kept going to the door, and he kept trying to make me go lay back down. And, of course, later on, I found out why. I have been taken on a street before. It was about 11:30 in the morning, and we were driving out of town. It was myself and my friend and my husband at the time. And yeah, we were going to the next town up, and we lost about half an hour. And I'm the only person that has any recall of what happened.
So they just grabbed all three of you, just.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you were the only target, like say the other two weren't a target, they just stowed them away in a different room, did whatever they were doing to you, put you back.
Well, and right, of course, all three of us were experiencers. I mean, and so.
Oh, really?
Sure that we each, yeah.
So note to those of you young who's experiencing stuff, don't hang out with other experiencers. You just become a bigger target. You become a buffet.
Note to self.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stay as far away as you can. No, well, there is that. However, the more experiencers I'm around, the more I feel at ease in myself, the more I feel.
Sure, you're tried.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You found your tribe. You can't be without a tribe. I don't care what you're going through.
But
We
what
as
if-
humans look for that connection, and the connection, what binds us together is the things that we suffer through, the things that we experience.
But what if that
Absolutely.
tribe is what's causing
Making
the
you more.
damage?
I know. That's the thing.
So you vicious circle. No. See, if I ever get abducted, I'm going to run away from anyone else who's been abducted. I don't want to be a target. And I've got my Kegel foo on
You can
point.
try.
Yeah, I don't think you really get a choice.
So
And people say commonly, like, why is this only happens at night? It can't be true. It only happens at night. But if you think about it, if I were looking down on anything, an aquarium with anything in it, I would find the timing where that whatever it is would be the least missed, would be the most vulnerable, and would be the easiest to get to. And when you're sleeping, it's perfect. I mean, it's the perfect time for an abduction.
I sleep at category 4 Kegel foo.
I don't know. I think that the probability of there being these types of encounters is too high for anyone to deny it. But I think that there's still so many deniers nowadays that it just adds to the PTSD. That it just is the second level. And now I can't talk about what happened.
And now you understand why I named my book the way I did.
Yeah, it's the dirty
Ah.
little secret.
Yeah.
Because you can't talk about it.
Exactly.
So you said your children have started to experience? Are they scary ones? Like, because as a mom, you want to protect your babies.
you do want to protect your children. However, you don't have the means to. Not with this.
Yeah. So how do you prepare them?
Well, they're probably taking her at the same time. It seems like they
Good
didn't care.
girl.
The
Yes.
old man's around.
Actually, yes. That has happened, and I know it for certain because one morning waking up and having this profound experience and going out, and my children are grown. The youngest is 20 and the oldest is 25. So this was a couple years ago. I'm like, wow, I had this crazy experience, and they're like, Mom, we had this crazy experience last night, and we compared notes. And while it was different, it was very obvious that we were all three were taken that night. So this was October 27th, 2018. Actually, I remember the date. And my experience was I was asleep and I was dreaming. I was in a haunted house in my dream, and I was trying to clear the spirits, which is something that I do, when I'm awake. So it was weird. But I was woken up by the covers being pulled off of me. I was married at the time, and he is a notorious blanket puller, but that would have been in the opposite direction. So the blankets are being pulled off in the opposite direction from where he was sleeping, and it startled me, and I woke up, and there were 3 beings in the room. They looked very different. One, I've never ever seen a creature like this before. It was like a muddy brown creature that was drippy, like he was half formed, not fully formed, and kind of I don't know. I can't even.
We saw one of those in Tiago's book.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. There's he is the Brazilian MUFON president. He actually cataloged all of the aliens, and I remember the drippy alien that was brown because I was like, oh my gosh, look at that one. You'll have to look at it. Yeah, he made a full book just from experiences. He's done a ton of research, and he's had sketch artists come in, and what he does is he gets 2 or 3 people to agree that this is actually what it looked like before it goes into the catalog. And then he catalogs as much information as he can glean, like, what did they do? What was their, operatus mandate? How did
Where
they
did-
operate?
Where were they seen?
Where were they seen? What were they in?
It's called
How old were you?
Isn't it called
Yeah.
Tantrestry? It's in Portuguese.
It's in Portuguese, but the book has lots of pictures. So I think it's called Extraterrestry.
Yeah, Extraterrestry or Terrestry.
Yeah, but it's by Tiago. What's his last name?
Tiago Tichetti.
Tichetti.
Thiago, and then Thettec.
Yeah,
I
that's
can
a cool
I
book.
can
But
send you
your
the
brown
link.
melting guy is in that book.
That's amazing because I have never heard anybody ever say anything about the brown drippy dude. And then there was like a classic gray type, alien Zeta, I guess you would call him. And then there was a tall white being who I was familiar with. And it's a very strange feeling to be familiar with something that you feel like you're seeing for the first time. Like, oh, wow, hey, it's you. And,
So
you know, and
confused.
it's bizarre. It's like in one realm of my understanding here now, I don't know who that was, but when I was awoke in the middle of the night, I knew exactly who this guy was. And he just sort of tilted my head like, yeah, no shit, come on, let's go. And I reached out my hand and they took me through the living room, through the wall, and out to a device that
They just take you through the wall like you're supposed to be okay with that.
Yeah. And I think that at this point I'm just used to it because even when I was 7 years old in the regression I had with Yvonne, I went through the ceiling and I was able at that point in time to describe it. It's almost like she went slow motion with me and I could describe and feel my molecules separating out so that I could pass through the molecules of the solid material until I got outside of the house. It was crazy feeling.
We're losing your audio again. Like you just gotta stay close. But yeah, now you don't want to get too used to it because then, like in normal waking life, you end up bumping into the wall all the time. Like, oh, I forgot. You know, got a black eye. Your husband's like, he's like, hey, I didn't do that. She fell in the shower, but really, it was you trying to.
Well, that could explain things actually.
Trying to go to the kitchen.
Right. I am very clumsy, so I guess that would make sense.
Subconsciously, you're trying to speed up the process of movement through the house.
It wouldn't surprise me. Surprise me.
So these latest marks, now you have no recollection of it because it sounds like most of the time your recollection comes from hypnosis, but these latest marks.
Most of it is.
What are the marks you have on yourself?
I have what I would call like a needle mark type of pattern on my hand, and it's just like little pinpricks, and there's little scabs, but they don't itch, they're not raised, just little red marks with little tiny scabs. They don't hurt, and they disappeared. And I actually had very similar marks last week, and that happened in a very strange fashion. I'm working from home right now. I'm a clinical therapist. I've been working from home, and it was lunchtime, and all of a sudden I just started dancing. I was able to clock out before I went crazy, but I just danced through the house and was feeling this odd sense of euphoria, and just came out of nowhere. And then as I got ready to prepare my lunch, I washed my hands, and I noticed these marks over both of my hands, and they had not been there just a little bit before. And it made me wonder, was I just taken and returned like within the same moment? Because my understanding is that there is no time, and they can manipulate that. They can, they can work outside of time and return you back to where you came from, sometimes earlier, sometimes later. That's where you get the missing or added time.
Well,
but
it's
it
not
just made me
that.
wonder what the heck happened.
But you also said you got out of work early, which throws your natural clock off. So it'd be easy to lose time if your natural schedule has been interrupted in some way.
No, it was just lunchtime. So I had clocked out and went to make lunch.
Oh.
So, but the feeling of euphoria, and then the marks, because I was, I'm a clinical therapist. It's not exciting stuff that I'm doing, and I'm not going to be elated. This is heavy. I'm carrying everybody's emotions, through the morning, and so it was just a very sudden shift in mood and the marks on my hands, and it made me wonder what the hell just happened, because I don't know.
Have you ever experienced a shift in your mood like that before?
No, not like that. No. I mean, I'm an empath, and I can feel people's emotions, and I can feel if an entity approaches me that's upset or sad or has a heavy heart. I can feel those things,
So,
but not that sense of euphoria like I felt.
so you have PTSD from abductions. You're an empath, and you decide to go into clinical therapy.
Glutton for
I'm not going to
punishment.
say that. Yeah. Well, I'm also not going to say this is my choice. I was a librarian. I was a very happy librarian. Um, and um, and oftentimes, if you think of the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where there's compulsions that are happening, and the Richard Dreyfuss character, who's just sculpting and painting and doing everything with the Devil's Tower, and he cannot stop himself. I too have those kinds of compulsions, and becoming a therapist is one of them. It was not. It almost feels like it wasn't my choice. Like I had to do this, and the information that percolates through my head is that I needed to do this so I could understand PTSD and help other experiencers to cope with their PTSD in order to be able to be clear thinking at the time that we are taken, so that we can have much easier communication and retain the information that we receive from the ETs when we're here.
So they drove you to do that.
At
Or-
least that's what it feels like. I mean, or I could just be completely crazy.
Oh well.
So we have a
Let's go
question
with-
from a
let's go with
listener.
a little column A.
Mary Heath would like to know, have you ever been in contact with Moldavite?
Yes, I do own a piece of moldavite.
What is Moldavite?
Moldavite is like a
It's
crystal.
moldavite.
It's a glass that was formed in the Moldav region of like Siberia, I think, when a meteorite hit. Or I could just be completely crazy. Turned the ground into glass, and that's what this moldavite is. It's green. It's beautiful. The light shines through it. It's really neat, but it's very high vibrational stone, and is said to connect to ET like energies.
Awesome.
Okay, don't
Jared, don't get any.
Get people you don't like Moldavite earrings. Yeah.
So what's next for you? You said that you're getting ready to leave Roswell. Has your activity increased in Roswell? Is it truly all that it's hyped up to be?
This is just a town in New Mexico, very, very poor. There is activity here, but I experience activity no matter where I'm at. I don't know if it's increased here or not. There was a crash here in 1947. That's kind of what the whole town is based on. Most of the residents pretend like it didn't happen. They don't want to know anything about aliens. They don't want anything to do with aliens. So it gets really interesting in the summer when there's a UFO festival, and the population actually doubles in size here for that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
What's their mascot for their high school there?
We've got the Coyotes and the Rockets. Broncos is the military institute. So the Rockets is because Goddard developed his rocketry here in the area, so that's for that.
Okay, so they didn't grab like, the
Glebe Glorp.
Yeah, the Glebe Glorps. The...
No, we do have a minor league baseball team called the Invaders, so there is that.
Oh, okay. I didn't know Roswell was that big.
I think we're at about 60,000, something like that.
Wow, that's I mean, we're in tiny towns compared to that. One high school, you know. I,
Yeah.
so
So what's next for you, Erin? Once you break free, are you going to do you think that you'll be making some decisions for yourself? Do you feel like that maybe this is an opportunity to take your life back? Like,
or are the
I'm not a
aliens driving
therapist.
this?
I think a lot of what the going through the book and the processing all of this has made me
Oh,
realize
we've
that
lost your
I'm not
sound, Aaron.
certain.
We've lost your sound again.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. So
okay. Is it
going
there
through the
now?
book. Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. Um, However, talking to experiencers actually causes a lot of difficulties with technology. It's
Mm.
just the way it goes. Um,
Being a
I'm going to continue
Neanderthal
my
does the
clinical
same
work.
thing. Being a Neanderthal causes difficulties too. So.
I'll continue my clinical work because I need to, but I've noticed that I'm not going to ever get out of this field, and I don't want to. Helping others like myself come to terms with what they've gone through has become a serious mission for me. And my next book is actually going to be about how ET contact affects relationships
Mm.
for those contactees. You know, whether it's a romantic relationship, familial relationships with friends, with themselves, with mental health and addictions, with God. You know, all those things that I'm going to
Hmm.
explore.
Oh, I'll bet. I'll bet it. I could imagine it would only affect every part of your life, especially if they get you anywhere. I mean, you know, what if you're like in the bathroom doing your business and yeah, no, that,
I've actually heard of that happening. So
you've had that happen?
no, not me personally. Well, I don't know. I could have, but no, I know somebody who's had that happen. Yeah.
Again, super vulnerable. You're in a
I
vulnerable
know.
position. What you
You're
gonna do?
The
and
door is closed. Nobody can see. Mhm.
you can't Kegel foo up while you're doing that. I mean, that's arguing prospects right there. You just can't. You've got to, you know.
Now you're gonna be afraid on the toilet, Jared? Would you say, Erin, that your PTSD was worse before your hypnosis or after your hypnosis? Because I think a lot of abductees find themselves saying, at least for a time frame, that I'd rather not know because I think it'll be worse if I know. Did you just have this fear, this unknown fear before your hypnosis?
At the time I decided to have hypnosis, I knew I was having contact. I had memories, I had experiences, awake dreams. I knew it was a real thing. So it wasn't a question of, is this happening to me or not? At the time that I decided to go to hypnosis was I have got to work with that PTSD. I have got to sleep. I have got to start functioning better. And so it was different for me than just understanding if I was or was not a contactee. Um, and I know that people do hesitate around it. However, hypnosis is the only thing that has really helped my PTSD. Now, I don't only have it from contact. I was in a domestically violent marriage. I mean, there's other stages of PTSD that I've dealt with. And honestly, dealing with the ET contact has been easier for me than dealing with, fears of a man who raises his voice or, things like that. So um, that's also the nature of PTSD. Once you're traumatized, if it has not been healed, each other trauma is going to build upon it, and easier to hurt the mind if you've already been traumatized. That's just the way it goes.
Sure. So we've got an anonymous question. A listener would like to remain anonymous, but when it comes to schizophrenia, is it possible that schizophrenia is just experiencing things like this, abductions or multidimensional things? Um, a lot of schizophrenia, they say that they hear voices. A lot of abductees hear voices. A lot of paranormal people hear voices.
Or
Is
maybe the implant.
Yeah, I mean, are some of our mental health diagnoses coming from possible connections or possible, I guess, contact?
That's a really good question. And as a contactee with mental health issues, because PTSD certainly is one, yes, exposure to this can cause issues. However, things like, maybe bipolar disorder or schizophrenia is going to be seen first, probably in the genetic line as well. And it, contact could bring it on. It could exacerbate the experiences. With schizophrenia, you're going to have a confusion of thought. And it's not just I've experienced this and it doesn't make sense, but you're not going to be able to express yourself in a way that other people do. There's something called word salad, and when you're listening to somebody who is struggling with schizophrenia, it just none of it makes sense. You just like, okay, it just doesn't it's almost like random words coming out sometimes. And that's one of the symptoms. um, and then with somebody who has bipolar disorder, and both of those can come with hallucinations and delusions and all of that. Again, this is a mood disorder where your moods just are not stable, and with contact it can exacerbate it, absolutely. However, there are some people with these things that do not have contact, and then there's contactees that do not have these issues. So it's it would definitely be interesting to study more in depth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a
Question.
question that would take a
It's an
lot of
excellent,
study.
yeah,
Yeah, anonymous, good question.
excellent question.
Yes, that's so. Just you're saying just a couple days ago you do you have any of you said you didn't have any of the memory from a couple days ago, but you woke up with markings.
Hmm.
What
Yeah, no, I don't have any memories. Um, Go
what
on.
what other markings have you found throughout the time that are unexplainable?
I have had marks on my knees, like there was a strap across them, and there's bruises above and below on both knees equal that appeared out of the blue once, and I didn't see them or know they were there until I got into the bath water, and it stung really bad. And I looked down and went, "Oh crap, look at
Oh,
that." I've had bruises on my inner thighs that look like there's usually three together, like finger marks on my inner thighs, and that is really quite disconcerting.
well, I
You know,
imagine that's really unnerving to think, because
Especially to not remember.
that's a double violation.
right? Exactly, it is. It is a double violation, and that
Well, it's
can be
triple.
very
No,
scary.
they stole you. They took you through the wall, and then they did whatever they did in the third violation.
Mhm.
Five, and then they put you back. Didn't tell you about it later, and yeah, no, that's a lot of violation.
There are a lot of violations, absolutely. And I've had like hand marks on my wrist, bruises around my wrist. Um, One of my daughters has had bruises on the outside of her thighs, like they look just like handprints. And then on that occasion where we had the, the all three of us had experiences, the other daughter had bruises like under her arms, at her armpit, like she had been grabbed and picked up. I've had like injection marks in my chest, very strange semicircular marks on my elbow and one on my knee, um, scoop marks, just
Like
little chunks of skin that are missing.
like they took a biopsy sample.
Yeah. Hmm.
Oh. Like they're getting a genetic code so they can clone you and invade later with a whole bunch
So
of U's.
Who knows what their purpose is?
a little army of errands.
Yeah.
So-
Coming in all, they take you and make you all shark-eyed and crazy clones and
So with these dumps of information that you talk about, does it help make the picture any clearer? Are you getting an understanding of why they're doing this? Why? Like, or are these dumps of information more so information that helps you kind of operate in this dimension?
Well, it certainly helps me operate in this dimension because it helps me make sense of why I, can access past lives and understand, or, other lives and these flashes and these dreams and being able to communicate with the other selves and then helping other people with that as well. It's almost, I don't know why I know those things. I don't know why they chose for me to understand that. But I do know that they want me to be able to impart this information, and I think it's really interesting the shift that has happened, from I would say like 20 years ago, an abductee would be like, no, we can't talk about this. We can't talk about this. We're not supposed to say anything. And now we're being pushed. Many of us, it's not just me that feels compelled and has to tell this story. There's a lot of us right now that are coming forward and saying, no, this is really happening. And I think that the ETs want this known now.
It's like we're evolving. They're forcing evolution. They're forcing our mind evolution by pushing you all to tell your story because it shifts our paradigm. 10 years ago, I would have said, there's no way. Now I'm like, there's no way there's not.
Right. Right. And I think it's been seeded, through the media, through movies, through all of these
Yes.
different outlets. We know it, we've seen it. And now the people who have actually had experience are coming forward, and that's going to emphasize the truth of this. People look for disclosure through the government, but that's not how it's happening. It's happening grassroots, mouth to mouth.
Yeah.
People look to us. This is disclosure now.
We are being desensitized to whatever's next. Maybe it's full contact, where they just land a ship somewhere. I mean, we are being so desensitized to that most of us would go, oh, look, they're filming a movie. Look at that. That's a cool prop. Check it out. We'd all wander towards it,
Not me. Not me. I'm getting in my
No.
Kegel foo stance. I'm hands up, making my karate sounds.
But I think you're right. I think that now more than ever, I don't believe that there's just more abductees now by any stretch. I just think now more than ever, they're telling their story. And I think that, humans are evolving. We're evolving to understand it better. Our technology is so much greater than it was even 20 years ago. So it doesn't seem as strange. It doesn't seem as alien, so to speak.
Do you think they're intergalactic or interplanetary, or do you think that they are interdimensional? What's the feeling you get?
My thoughts are interdimensional. However, I believe intergalactic travel can happen as well, and I think that if they are from a different galaxy or different, solar system, to me it does not mean that they don't use dimensional travel to get here easily. Wherever these beings are from, they are able to create wormholes and slice through these different dimensions to travel easily. That's my belief.
Okay.
It is dimensional.
So
But
so
doesn't- Yeah.
they are interdimensional, but they're interdimensional in their means of travel, but interplanetary. Well, not maybe not interplanetary,
Maybe.
intergalactic, or
But I think they can be.
yeah.
I think
Well,
maybe some of them are, but maybe not all of them.
do
Yeah, I
you-
mean, perhaps there's lots of other planets that have unevolved creatures that are being experimented on like humans.
Oh,
True. And who's to say that the dimension over next to us doesn't also have many, many planets that have planetary travel? So, I mean, it gets so complex.
yeah.
And there's so many different thoughts and possibilities.
It's way too big to understand.
Yeah,
that's
that
why.
just
That's how I know. That's how I know.
That just multiplies the creepy factor on top of creepy factor.
It does.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah, that's freaky. Now we've got a few more questions. I know we're getting down to about 10 minutes left, but we've got a listener says, "Do you think psychedelics open up the human mind to another dimension, a dimension with other beings?"
I know of many people who think that. Never having used them myself, I don't know. Not from personal, but I have heard others who say absolutely it does.
I'm wondering if that's a
yeah.
way that some people communicate with their alien abductors. Okay,
To meet
so
them on an even playing field, perhaps.
yeah, well, yeah, that is that inviting them in, kind of like hanging out with other abductees, is using a substance.
All the same.
Yeah, that just sounds.
Psychedelics, friends that have been abducted.
Yeah. That's going to be my question. Have you been abducted? No. All right, cool. We can hang out. What, you don't like abductees? No. I just know you guys are magnets. I don't want none of that crap. And then Mary says, studies done by scientists have shown they increase brain waves and productivity, which also opens up your third eye. This can and will make you more aware of things that are outside the normal everyday experiences. And then Mary mentions, talking about your mantis, she would need multiple lifetimes of therapy after an experience like that, and I concur.
Bugs, giant bugs.
Yeah.
Why, universe? Why?
Yes. James says there's a
Can't they be like cuddly teddy bears? Like
That's
koalas.
No, I want to go back to like the late 70s alien movies where it was all just, models in loincloths. Call it a day. I'm satisfied. Yes.
It's interesting you mentioned teddy bears because they do try to, I think, like preserve our delicate minds, because they are, and they will use what are called screen images. And for many years, what I would see would be teddy bears, stuffed animals, dolls, and things like that. And it wouldn't be actual aliens. It would be a representation. And now, looking back at it, I know it for what it is.
So they show up to you looking like a damn teddy bear, like that's going to be okay.
And is that
Yeah,
just
this
some
called-
species? Because some just don't care, right?
Some don't care. Some do not care. You are absolutely right. But some do want to preserve the integrity of the human, whether it's because they're test creatures, or, there's something valuable, or they actually care. It's hard to tell. It's impossible to tell what their agendas are.
So they might be clinical, like veterinarians, and just tear through you like, oh, you'll be fine. Or hopefully you get a nice one to abduct you.
Right.
And is that common too? Is that a common thread that people who experience abductions generally experience abductions from several different types of species? Like, do they like have a newsletter? Like, there's so and so ready for we abducted her last week. Like, do they share this information?
A newsletter.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I've had multiple different types, and I know several others who have seen multiple.
Everyone we've talked to says the same thing, that I was abducted by grays, and then I was abducted by the tall whites, and then I was abducted by. I've never heard someone talk about the mantids until you. I was hoping they didn't exist.
We've heard about the mantids.
Yes, we've heard about them, but never heard of an abduction
We've talked
by
to a
them.
few abductees, and
Right. Well, and even that abduction with the mantid, I was the beings that took me onto the ship were the Zetas, the small grays.
yeah,
So
we've also
They're
heard
working for them.
we've also heard that the Zetas are more of a biological construct to be like the workers for other aliens.
I've heard that as well. I'm not sure I agree completely, but I've also run into many different grays that are short like that, but they are different species. So it's hard. It's hard to tell. I mean, there's so many that look very similar. It's hard to tell who it is that you're dealing with.
James says there's a boy in Russia that believes he was a Martian in a previous life. Like a Martian from Mars?
He doesn't. I mean, I've followed his story. He knows things that a little boy should not know. I mean, he knows. Yeah, he knows. Like, he knows things about our universe that, I mean, rocket engineers are just learning. So maybe it's a memory and not, made up. Because he's an interesting subject for sure.
Yeah, that'd be that. I've never heard of him. Now I've got a positive message. Tony says you're absolutely gorgeous. So there you go.
Wonderful.
Thanks, Tony. Way to bring it back to the happy from the scary. I like it.
Yes. Whew. Oh, it's terrifying stuff.
Yes.
I think it's really cool that that you're sharing all of your stories. I think it's super brave to be vulnerable like that. But I think that as humans, we're evolving to a point that I think that it's becoming more acceptable to have been through these things.
Yeah, well, let's
super cool. I can't wait to read the book.
Yes.
And you're writing a new one, correct? You just mentioned that. Have you?
Yeah. I've got several books in the process actually right now, but yes, that is my next big project.
Okay.
Awesome.
Do you have a name for it yet? Something for the listeners to look forward to, or will you come back on when it's done and update everyone?
I will come back on when it's done.
Perfect.
No name yet.
Okay. So, and now we've got a few minutes left. You want to any final words? Maybe a.
What would you tell someone who has been through something like this? What would be your advice?
Yeah. What do you tell your daughters?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Half the time my daughters don't want to hear me. So I mean, it depends on if they're looking for
I know.
support or they're trying to hide from it. And I understand that at their age I was trying to hide from all of this as well. The number one thing I would tell somebody who is experiencing these things and is reaching out for help is to find a support group, because
Find other abductees.
essential. Yes. Well, you might not like that, Jared.
But
You might not like it.
may as well just put
to feel accepted, to know that you are not alone in this experience, to know that you can talk about these things and not be judged is absolutely critical.
Gotta
For
find
those
your
of us who
tribe.
have to, absolutely. And there are many, many to find.
So, do you make the sign that says "Come here" in neon, or do you just paint it on the roof of wherever you're at?
I'm pretty sure I was born with one flashing over the top of my head, whether
But
I wanted it or not.
when you hang out with other abductees, you may as well just make a sign like the Luxor in Vegas. Just shoot a bright light into the sky, and you know, oh, not me. I'm going
And
dark.
sometimes we're kind of okay with that too. It takes a while to get to the point where you're okay with it.
Oh, I imagine it does. Yeah,
Never a dull moment.
I guess.
I mean,
I guess get a play. Name that brand new scar or mark. That sounds terrible. But thanks so much for coming on, Erin.
it was super nice to meet you, Erin.
Yes, it was.
Absolutely, I enjoyed it.
Yes.
Interesting stuff. You guys go check out her book.
Yeah, check out her book. Again, it's The Dirty Little Secret. I know. It has a very sultry name. Here's what it looks like up close. Confessions of an Alien Contactee. Dirty Little Secret. Grab it. I grabbed this one on Amazon. Quick and easy. Shows up 2 days later, ready to go. So,
And we'll be watching for your next one. You'll have to let us know when it drops.
yes, and if
Absolutely.
Great information.
and if something new comes up, you got a new defense move or something like that, hit us up. We'll bring you on. Definitely serve
Awesome.
the public by
Will do.
telling them how to ninja kick the damn alien. Yes.
I don't know. I'd probably be more apt to shake his hand.
Yeah, that's true. Well, thanks, Erin. You have a great
Yes,
night.
thank you so much. You
All
have
right,
a wonderful
thank you.
night.
All
And
right.
thanks everyone for
Bye now.
joining.
Yeah, thanks for joining us,
Show.
everyone. If we didn't get to your questions, it's maybe because they didn't come through fast enough, but we did get to the last one. Everyone have a good night, and we will see you next week.
Yeah, have a great week.
Not a sign of a human. Why does it feel not a sign of a human?